We have 7 o'clock, so we'll pull the Greenbush Central School District board meeting to order, 7 p.m. For attendance this evening, Mr. Mann does expect to be here a little bit late, and Ms. Curtin is not going to be here this evening. So if you could please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. First order of business, item student council representatives. I don't think we have them here this evening. No. Mr. Goyle, welcome. Good to see you again. We have the draft minutes from August 24th approval. I have them coming up for some reason. Any questions or comments on the draft minutes? Seeing none, a motion to approve that. Jennifer, second. Joanne, all those in favor? All those abstaining? Approved. Next item is the board form. I'll start on my left with Cheryl.
All set.
It's good, Michelle. Good. Joanne?
I'll take this time.
Jennifer?
I'm good.
Joanne?
Just want to acknowledge Mike Leonard's last day this week, and once again, thank him for his service to the district. He left his mark, touched many lives, and just want to thank him for everything he did for our children.
Thanks, Joanne. Emily? Good. Just want to welcome everyone back to school. Our last meeting was before school started, so hope we had a good school opening. Just one item too, the board did have a retreat last week. We spent a lot of time with facilitator Mike Ford, who worked with us on just some data and some information about schools and the state of things. We also worked about kind of how board operations are, and then our goals for the 22-23, which we'll continue to work on, and then make sure that we get those out in the near future to the school community and to the district as we finalize those. So with that, we'll move to our public forum. Residents, students, employees, and business representatives of the East Greenbush Central School District may address the board on matters concerning programs and/or operations of the district other than matters involving personnel. Members of the board do not directly respond to citizen concerns in the public forum. If a response is appropriate, either the president or superintendent will contact the individual in the near future. Those persons wishing to address the board will be recognized by the chair at the meeting and should state for the record their name and address or affiliation with the district or business. While the board does not wish to infringe upon free speech protections, it must be stressed that the visitors forum is not deemed to be an open forum. The board president will conduct the forum for the orderly and efficient operation of board business. In addition, any remarks which be considered defamatory or stigmatizing or prohibited would be declared out of order. All comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Is anyone who would like to address the board at this time? Yes.
Good evening, everyone.
So the mic is just for the Google Meet. It doesn't have a speaker, so you can.
Perfect. All right.
leave
Well,
it.
good evening. My name is Allison Hosier, and I'm a teacher at Goff Middle School and president of the East Greenbush Teachers Association. Thank you for having me this evening. I just wanted to let everybody know that we're very glad to be back to normal this year, if that's what we want to call it. And we really appreciate the board's support with reaching out through a survey for our membership so they could describe some of the things they experienced over the last couple of years as we dealt with the pandemic. So thank you, everybody, for your support with that. Our members have always been amazing at stepping up to the plate and doing great things even when times are tough. So I just wanted to speak on behalf of that and acknowledge the exceptional professionalism and passion that our people have. Our teachers have done amazing things, including, being recognized as top teachers by the Channel 13. We've had 2 members that went to the second round for our New York State Teacher of the Year for 2023. And then we have our EGTA Teacher of the Year, Beth Hart. So I just wanted to acknowledge her this evening as well. The EGTA, as you know, is committed to a partnership with the community, and we do a lot of community activities. You'll see us active in the community this school year, again, as we return to normal. For September, we're going to be working on domestic violence awareness, and then for October, breast cancer awareness. So we're really proud of that, and our membership not only doing great things in the classroom, but also in the community. And finally, just as a statement, I'm really looking forward to working with all of you and having an excellent partnership that acknowledges the benefits of excellent labor relations. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Allison. Appreciate it. And Mr. Wider, weren't you one of the teachers that was recognized last year? Congratulations. I saw you back there. You're like, I mentioned that. So, thank you, Allison. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Coyle.
I'm Bill Coyle, for those of you who haven't met. And I'd like to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to come back and serve as the interim director of pupil services while we hire a replacement for Molly McGrath. And thank you all too for your service on the board. I know some of you have been here more years than I've worked here. It's a lot of commitment. We appreciate it from the community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. You're being available and to fill that role as we search. Thank you again. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move to our next item, which is reports and presentations of the superintendent.
I'm just going to turn the program over to our Assistant Superintendent, Roy Stiles, who will introduce a very important program review. Mr. Stiles.
Yes, so last year we had a library program review, and I believe all 7 of our librarians are here today to give some highlights and overview of that program review. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Okay, who's taking the lead?
Well, we're a good team.
All right.
Okay,
So we'll just do some introductions quick.
absolutely.
Thank you.
We included in our slideshow.
All right.
All right, so we are the librarians here at. Is there a video? Okay, I just didn't know if we were like turning our back to it or anything.
There's a camera.
Oh, camera.
It's okay.
All right. Okay. Sorry. So we're good. We're good. Comfy for everybody.
Great.
All right. Hi, pig friends. Okay. Hello. We are the librarians of East Greenbush Central School District, and we are going to introduce ourselves.
Hi, I'm Felice Devine. I am the librarian at Belltop, and we have a clerk, Claudia Mangione, who is with me and with Liz over at Red Mill.
And I am Kate Banks. I work at Columbia High School full-time, and my clerk is Diane Mahar, and she works with me part-time.
And I'm Jamie Tobin. I am the librarian at Goff Middle School, and Katie Snedeker is my part-time clerk in the mornings.
Hi, I'm Laura Walderzak, the librarian at Green Meadow, and I have Katie Snedeker in the afternoon.
Hi, I'm Sarah Garno. I'm at Chennai, and Sean Siver is with me every morning.
Hello, I'm Liz Griffin. I work at Red Mill full-time, and Claudia Mangione, I share with Felice over at Belltop.
Hi, my name's Peggy O'Connor. I am the librarian at DPS, Donald P. Sutherland, and Antoinette Perry is with me every morning as a clerk.
You're in the right line.
All right. So we would like to share with you our very well thought out and thorough library mission statement. The mission of the East Greenbush Central School District Library Program is to provide student-centered instruction and curricular support to equip learners with the skills needed to thrive in a changing global environment. We cultivate avid lifelong readers of diverse written works, ethical users of technology, and critical thinkers. We attain this through direct instruction and collaborative co-teaching with classroom teachers in accordance with the Empire State Information Fluency Continuum standards. We aim to provide a safe environment with equitable access to expertly curated resources across the district in order to help students excel and achieve maximum potential in a 21st century learning community.
In 2019, we updated to a new library automation system called the Fall at Destiny system. And since then, it has been life-changing for our program. Now, our students have better access to our digital collections, to our physical collections, and it has been wonderful for us as well. The system itself is faster and more easy to use, as well as offering really great data that we can use that indicates reading trends and also lets us know what areas in our physical collections are in need of improvement. So overall, We love our library automation system. Thank you so much for that. And it has been great for faculty, staff, students, and their families. Speaking to elementary staff restorations, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the elementary librarians have all been placed full-time in their buildings to accommodate the need there. And since then, you guys have made that official. Thank you again. This has been really great for me because last year we started our pre-K program and I now have the time to offer library instruction to those students. And that was awesome. They're so cute. We got to continue that this year across the district and the buildings that we have that offer pre-K, as well as offering more time for collaborative projects across the different libraries that have been really awesome programs for our students who have thoroughly enjoyed them.
Over the last few years, some of the things that we've been able to do at Janae are offer classes individually to the language concepts classes. They push in addition, but they also get a targeted class just for their needs, which has been very helpful. I've also been able to help a couple of classes with individual research. And I started with a first grade enrichment program last year with some of our students that were reading well above grade level. I'm going to continue with those students this year. And our first grade teachers also asked if I would continue working with some other first graders this year.
At Green Meadow, I've also been able to do so much. The library is open all day, every day, 5 days a week. Last year I had 8 small book groups, grades 3 to 5 each week. I'm able to push into classes more, and I do a weekly segment on GMTV with library happenings, getting the kids more interested in reading.
So I was itinerant for the past 3.5 years. So I was shared between 2 schools, Belltop and a Questar school. So this is my first year as a full-time librarian with East Greenbush. So I don't have a lot to share from what I did before with the new full-time, but I'm really excited about what I'm able to offer this year. And one highlight is a reader support group for students in grades 1, 2, and 3 who don't qualify for AIS services with reading. And so I'll be able to take those students who are kind of like on the edge and do reading groups with them and actually a lot more. So I'm really excited about this year being full-time at East Greenbush.
And we've been able to do all these similar things at DPS, the book groups, we've worked Belltop, and Liz and I have done collaborative book projects, huge projects. Liz and I presented them at the library conference this year. It's been amazing. So thank you. And it leads also perfectly into our last accomplishment, our collection development. Because we are there full time, we've been all able to spend a lot of time looking at what we have in our libraries, weeding them. When you weed your books, the kids, all of a sudden our circulation statistics went up. They're able to see our books better, use our books better. That was a huge thing we've been able to do. And then we were able to spend time looking for grants. We had 2 grants that we were able to receive that allowed us to build our collections, diversify them. I had social emotional books and the social justice website. We worked as a team and built a website that is separated by grade level where students and staff and community members can access it and find books that they might want to use with their families to discuss issues.
All right, so I'm going to talk about some of our, I'm going to start with one of our goals for the next 5 years. And one of them is to expand our social emotional learning opportunities. And because the library program supports all of the district initiatives and all of our students, we're really uniquely positioned to provide social and emotional learning opportunities. And we've been able to do that through our collection development, like what Peggy mentioned with those grants, and our student-focused programming. Through our collections, we're able to offer a safe harbor for struggling students and be a sort of portal to let them see different viewpoints and really expand their understanding of the world. So we've done this through our collection development and the programming. And one example of programming, again, since I'm newly full-time, this is a new program. I'll share one that we're developing at Belltop. It's a civic engagement program for all of our 5th graders. It's a small group program, and it touches on 3 broad social emotional learning areas: skills for self, interpersonal skills, and skills for community. And this is really only able to be offered because of the restoration of the full-time librarian. So thank you.
One of our other goals is to work on diversity audits. We are currently actively looking for tools that will help us to explore what kind of diversity we have in our collections and how we can improve on that. We're specifically looking at ethnicity, race, neurodiversity, and gender identity, along with some other things. But our students are so diverse, and we want our collections to reflect the students that we have in our buildings. So we need to look at, what we have that's working great, and then where we could improve our collections.
So in terms of engaging in flexible learning environments at my building, Goff, I know my technology is kind of fixed to my ceiling. I have a projector attached to the ceiling and a screen that drops down. So, as we go further in the 21st century and look for more flexible kind of technology in seating, that might be an area in need of improvement.
As for the rest of us, I know we're all so glad to have our furniture back where we want it, arranged the way we like it. Our spaces are just working so much better this way. Going forward, an opportunity for our program would be to replace some of the older furniture with some more flexible things, not only for our students and staff to use, but for the community, just so it's a more flexible, versatile environment for us.
All right, so some of our next steps are going to be updating our library digital literacy curriculum map to reflect the new updated standards that came from the American Association of School Librarians, and then to crosswalk that with the ISTE standards, ISTE meaning International Society for Technology and Education. Did I get that right, Peter? Yes. Awesome. I was nervous. So we want to make sure that our curriculum map reflects the work we're already doing with these new standards, and it is reflected as well in our documentation that we use all year.
Sarah mentioned it's one of our goals, the diversity audits. Right now we're looking for some professional development for our department to make sure that we're doing that properly and effectively. That's what we're looking for ourselves. And then we're also all willing to offer professional development in our buildings for the Follett system. We want to make sure everyone's using it. We all already talked about how awesome it is. We also want to make sure that students and staff are able to use the SEL books that were from the grant, and anything else that we can offer, anything else that might come up.
And again, next steps. These are our dreams. We want to meet our students' needs, and we've been able to do so much with our system and our collection developments. We all have clerks just part-time. Our dream would be to increase that. All the stuff that we do, we can't do when our clerks aren't there, because we have to be in our libraries. We have to change the way we teach so that we can do checkout and things like that. So that would be one of our goals, our next steps that we would all like in our libraries.
So at Goff, same thing, to meet students' needs. My administration at Goff, Mrs. Barker, has made clear she would like reading stamina to be a goal for us. And of course, that's right up my alley. But with a support staff only in the morning, I'd love to hold lunch book clubs, team time book clubs. Most of the team times are in the afternoon. I would love to do that, but being alone in the afternoon does not allow me to do that. If I'm not in the library, I'm teaching a class in the library, I'm not available to the other 900 students. So it's a bit limiting, but that is something that, again, if we were dreaming, I would love for that to be the dream.
Okay, I did write it down because I can be a bit long-winded, as my students know. So I just wanted to mention quickly in terms of the high school's students' needs. We had a significant impact due to COVID, as we all have, but the high school library did have a significant adjustment. Out of all of our libraries, the Columbia High School Library has been most negatively impacted as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. In restoring the elementary librarians to full-time, the high school library staffing has been cut in half. For the first time, we have not had 2 full-time librarians to meet the needs of the largest population of students in the district, and at a moment when they need it most. With 2 full-time librarians, we would be able to restore library instruction to 8 periods a day, increase access to the library for student visitors both during and after school, and better support all high school students in developing academic research and media literacy skills at a time that they need them most. Our libraries are more than just places to store books. We provide a safe space for students to learn and grow at every level. So it's important for me as the high school librarian to advocate for Columbia High School. Recently on social media, there was this quote that was shared around in the library land, and it was posted by one of our students, one of our recent alumni. I'm gonna read the quote for you because I can't help myself. "I wouldn't have survived high school without the library. It was the one place I felt comfortable. Shout out to all the librarians who create a safe haven for odd ducks like me." So that was a direct quote that was shared by one of our recent graduates. And I just really want to make sure that you consider this and help me advocate for a second librarian at Columbia to help support our high school students. As always, we really, really appreciate your continued support of the libraries. We wouldn't be here as a group without your support, and we are 100% appreciative of that.
So in closing, we'd just like to open it up. We'd like to say thank you and open it up for any questions that anybody might have.
I have two questions. So there was a mention of flexible learning environments. What does that mean? Give me an example of what you're talking about.
Well, something that before I came to East Greenbush, I worked at Holy Spirit, and I had the opportunity to work on a renovation of their library. And in the place of the large tables that take a lot of effort to move and store, just something so simple that we had were some collapsible like tables that are the length of this and movable shelving. And that way, if there was a meeting or something like that, we were able to just, flex it right out. Or if we wanted to have tables together to have group work, things like that, just a little bit easier to flex and move it. Really, it's just about, for us, I think it would be for lighter, easier to move things that that we could gear toward technology, and then different sort of group environments working. We're always sort of trying different things and trying different strategies. So anything like that would help us.
One other thing, for some reason, some of the publishers have gotten creative with the sizing of their books lately, and flexible shelving would be really helpful for fitting some of, especially the picture books. They've decided to get very tall, and they just don't fit on our shelves unless we put them sideways. So that would be helpful too.
And the shelves can roll. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So
Yeah.
you can browse through. It's
Yes.
very cool.
They've gotten very creative with shelving lately, so.
Secondly, so there's a little bit of a Questar connection here. So you're all connected with Maureen Squire and School Library Services?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Closely.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. So thank you very much. If there's any other comments or questions from the board members?
Hi, Emily. I have a comment or question. Can you talk a little bit more about your diversity audit, what you'll be looking at, and if it's across all the schools, and what your goals are after the audit?
It is going to be across all of our schools. Right now, we're currently just looking for what tools are out there to do diversity audits. We've seen a few, but they don't do the whole collection. So we're looking for something that would try to get us, would help us to look at our whole collection. We're looking to make sure that what we have isn't dated and giving misinformation, especially on certain races and ethnicities. And then after the audit, we're looking to just fill the gaps that we've got in our collections. Anybody else?
So at Red Mill this year, we started our E&L program. It's grown so much that it now expanded into another building. And one of the areas I really need to focus on is finding books that accommodate my E&L students and meet their needs, and accurately represent the cultures that they hail from, so that our students in Red Mill can learn more about their classmates, and our E&L students also have some familiar things that they might be learning about at home in addition to what they're learning at school.
Okay, just because this happened, we have a student in a wheelchair at DPS, and the books are now reflecting that better. And when he reads those books, he's just in heaven. So to make sure we're helping every kid see themselves in a book is what we're hoping to do.
There's
providing them a tour of our school.
And finally, we are happy to share that the student body is grateful to have a normal start to the school year after the past few years with COVID and masks and virtual learning. So that is all we have for today. So thank you for having us. And again, we apologize for being late.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks for appreciate it.
Thank you.
So the next item on our agenda is discussion items. We have two items for this evening. The first one is the school safety educational climate incident counts, which was something we talked about at our last board meeting.
In prior years, going back several years, New York State created a system for school districts to report incidents of behavior that fall within certain categories. At one point, the reports were called the VADER report. They are now called the School Safety and Educational Climate Reports. And each year annually, the district is required to track certain disciplinary incidents which fall within approximately 10 categories of behavior that are considered to be violent incidents or incidents that rise to a level of seriousness for which the state would like to receive the information. So all those reports are available on the website and on board docs for anyone who may have any need for the information or have any questions. There is a district-wide report that we file, and there is an individual report for each building. Ms. Cannon, our Director of Human Resources, coordinates the data which is provided by the principals or the assistant principals in some cases. I previously reported to the board that last year, our school district and many school districts were experiencing significant increases in disciplinary matters. Not all disciplinary incidents are captured in this report. So these are the only incidents that occurred within the categories that are defined by the state. We are investigating how we might be able to use PowerSchool or another component of a student information system to do more electronic data collection and reporting of all of our disciplinary incidents, and we'll keep the board apprised of that effort. But if there are any questions about specific numbers, I do have the backup data, and I'd be happy to answer any of those questions that the board might have. John?
What, do you have a breakdown or a little bit more of a conversation for the use and possession, sale of drugs? That number seems to be one of the higher categories, so.
I do. So we've had incidents at Goff Middle School where students were found in possession of vaping products. We've had incidents at Goff Middle School where students were found in possession of marijuana on school grounds. We've had similar incidents in the high school regarding similar substances. So, and there's a code of conduct provision for possession of not only illegal drugs, but other substances that could potentially harm students. And there's distribution as well is a second more serious level offense within our code of conduct.
Now, without getting specific, and that's not the purpose of this question, could you just walk us through what a student is found in violation of this? What is the process and how is it resolved? Or
typically, the incident is investigated by the administration of the building. We do have the ability within our high school, and we're talking about expanding it to the middle school, to test substances. For example, our school safety supervisors and working in coordination with our resource officer can test substances. When it is determined that it is either a legal drug or a substance that is not permitted by the code of conduct, two things generally happen. There's a evaluation of the student's prior disciplinary record. There's a reference to the code of conduct as to what level of offense it is, and then an appropriate consequence in combination with a referral in many cases to our prevention specialist program, which is provided through the county or some other agency. In particular, over the last couple of years, we have tried to emphasize not only the consequences in terms of the code of conduct for the disciplinary infraction, but also the need to refer those kids for substance abuse counseling. At times, we receive cooperation from the parent in that process, and other times we don't. But we try.
okay, now with the adding of the security positions at the middle school, would you feel as though some of these numbers would be impacted by by the additional personnel in that building?
I do. We had a meeting yesterday with Mrs. Barker, Mr. Newman, and Mrs. Hoffman, along with Jeff Weir, who is our safety supervisor at the high school. We reviewed the job description of the safety supervisor. One of the areas of the job description is to assist with the investigation of these types of incidents. Jeff shared with the middle school administration that the testing kits are available at the high school. We talked about the potential to bring those testing kits down to the middle school. So I would imagine and estimate that with additional support, we'll better be able to find incidents that may be occurring within the school and better able to respond to them in terms of getting the kids into an appropriate program. We're finding, and I've reported this in the past, that during the period of the pandemic, we have seen an increase in the number of children who are vaping. And we believe, and we've shared that information with our local law enforcement, and we believe that in some cases, some of the experiences of the students being isolated, more so than they otherwise would be, contributed to potential for an addiction. And we're seeing it at younger ages.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Jeff, can we talk a little bit about the cyberbullying and what the definition is? So say if somebody's cyberbullying somebody on a social media site that has nothing to do with the school district, is that still included in here? Or, is there times where things aren't included? Because the number seems low, and honestly, I'm surprised. I think it's higher than that. So I'm curious to see if there's stuff that, may not be in there.
Right. There's a definition of cyberbullying that is required by New York State in order to categorize the behaviors. So the volume of incidents between kids on social media where there is inappropriate interaction may not be defined as cyberbullying. So it doesn't go on this report. That doesn't mean that it hasn't been investigated, hasn't been looked into, and hasn't been responded to. Often it is the case that the incidents are mutual. Two kids are back and forth getting into, inappropriate communication via social media. In some cases, it's more leaning towards one student being the offender and one student being the victim. But there's also, looking at the actual facts of the investigation and the incident to determine whether it fits here. It doesn't mean that if it doesn't get reported in this particular report, that it may not lead to an in-school suspension or an out-of-school suspension or some other kind of disciplinary infraction. It just doesn't fall in the category of the school climate, educational climate index, but it does get addressed. Schools are challenged by this. This is very prevalent among our student population in terms of inappropriate communication, harmful words, harmful things that are posted about kids that are harmful and hurtful. Our kids are impacted by it in terms of their emotional wellness and mental health. But not everything, while the volume has increased, not everything gets captured in this data.
Is there any way that we could get data on that and track that, and so we can report back a little bit when those things happen? Because those are, maybe not classified as a cyberbullying on this report, but could, as you just said, could be as harmful to our students.
Right now, it's a paper and pencil. So it's a discipline report that exists at the building level that only gets reported into an electronic database if it falls within one of these categories. The expansion of the Power School program, we've been talking about this for years, but with COVID, everything would enable electronic reporting of a disciplinary incident and almost an instantaneous categorization by the code of conduct. And then I could get a report, I could provide reports to you, and we're working on that.
Okay.
So, we want to expand our electronic use of incident reporting for those types of infractions that are not permitted by our code of conduct, but don't get captured in this data.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's an important consideration because, we have to evaluate our learning management system so it's all encompassing, because the other systems, School Tool and other ones do that.
Right.
And we talked briefly about how.
Yes,
Yeah,
so I was working on this.
So I had a meeting, Mr. Goodwin actually had a meeting just yesterday with Power School to talk about what they can provide. They kind of went through some different options, and we're following up and having another meeting with them. I believe it is on Monday of this coming week. So Power School does have the capability to do it. We're just kind of looking at what is going to be the best route district-wide to do it. But yes, I would anticipate us having that up and running.
Go ahead, Emily.
Thank you, John. I noticed that we have a good amount of incidents that are bias related to relating to sexual orientation, and it looks like that was in the high school, if I read it correctly. I'm wondering if you can, if you're able to maybe elaborate on that, and then if we have any plans on anti-bias training, whether that be for students, for faculty, staff, on how to handle that, how we go about handling that now.
So in general, at the high school, I have the incidents broken down here. There were 4 incidents that fell within the weapons possession category, and there were 7 incidents that fell into the category of an assault. And some of those assault incidents, were categorized as bias related. In most cases, I would generalize and say that at some point in the altercation or the incident, there was a name call, inappropriate name calling, or a reference of some kind that prompted it to be categorized as bias related. Not to put Mr. Harkin on the spot, but if Mr. Harkin wants to add any details.
Yeah, that's what happens. Unfortunately, you make a comment about race. Sometimes you make comments about socioeconomic status. You make comments about her identity or her sexuality, but that's what this was on. But so they make a comment that led to the altercation. And we do provide training. We do help provide a suite. And Mr. South and I are working to make a pride center for our teachers on the 5th of September. Conference Day, better prepare for that, better prepare for that, to those conversations.
We've also, when we were able to have assemblies, we haven't been able to have a lot of assemblies. We had worked with organizations such as the New York State Mental Health Association, Mahaney's Mental Health Association of New York State. We worked on bringing in presenters to talk with kids about these types of issues and suicide prevention and those kinds of efforts. So now that we can gather kids together a little bit more, we've done some remote work with parents. We want to have more of those kinds of opportunities to talk to the kids about these issues.
Right. And I think it's important to note that we just heard from the librarians that they're asking for that.
Yes.
I think the electronic tools to get the data that really impacts, this is basically the minimum the state requires. We want to make sure that if we can capture everything else, maybe it's Power School, maybe it's Qualtrics, some other system, so we can give you the tools you need to kind of address the training needs and things like that. So, excellent.
Just a final comment in support of this conversation. I think it's important, the state obviously gives us a parameter, but for us to dial down on it, because I think looking at some of the numbers, it can give you an indication of trends and what the climate is in each particular building, not only as just, and what is the climate for the whole environment. And then it would give the board an opportunity to add resources and things that you want if we can. So maybe I know you got a lot of work right now, but in like 6 months at the halfway point of the year, we could reassess where we are with it, and then we could make some adjustments prior to the budget if necessary.
For newer board members, I think it was 3 years ago or maybe 4 years ago now, we did implement the U.S. Department of Education school climate survey, which was not required of school districts. And generally the data that we got back from students and parents and staff was generally positive. However, trends have gotten different as a result of the last couple of years. So in addition to collecting the data and categorizing it so that the district and the board can have a full picture of what's happening with our students, and providing professional development and training and awareness sessions for the kids, we may want to consider a follow-up school climate survey in combination with implementing some of the strategies that we're talking about.
Yeah, that ties into like Emily's comment in the library and comment about the diversity. It
does.
could tie right in and, do multiple things at the SEAM survey
Very good.
or what.
I would also mention that we do have a committee that Roy is chairing on social emotional learning that will address, really look at what we can do K-12 to help kids learn particular aspects of social relations with each other, being more self-aware, how to interact with each other and problem solve, communicating effectively in a civil way. And I don't know, Roy, if you want to talk about that committee.
I've been doing it at the committee report. If you want me to wait,
Oh,
or I can do it now.
wait, well, that'll come up. That's a
Later item.
that's a coming attraction. That will be a coming attraction.
Got a preview.
So the last thing I want to mention too is, and I know we're supporting it, but the vaping monitors or detectors, I think will also help that because, we're going to do a more proactive approach to making sure that vaping is not happening in our school. So hopefully that will decrease the possession issue. And I know that's on our docket to do, and I'm very much supportive of that.
Those have been installed in the high school. They're being utilized in the high school, and we have high school students here. We are also considering using that in the middle, purchasing those for the middle school, but we want to see how they work at the high school.
Highly recommended in middle school.
So, very good. Thank you all for the support and the questions.
All right, moving on to the next discussion item is the follow up on the faculty and staff survey and also opening day. Mr. Simons?
As Mrs. Hosier alluded to, some of the information that the board had requested at the end of the last school year. I did address the survey responses with the full faculty and staff at the opening day for faculty at Columbia High School. I also shared the data, including the comments of the board and each of the administrators. On opening day, we talked about how we could not only normalize back to pre-COVID expectations, but address some of the issues around student attendance, around engagement, around making sure that we continue to maintain high expectations, but provide kids with high levels of support, engaging in fun, community-based activities with our students and our families, and also the social emotional learning piece that Mr. Stiles is going to talk about later. So that information has been shared with the faculty and staff. I also followed up and talked individually with the principals, and we're going to work with the board to align those areas, focus areas, with the board's goals, and the administrators are going to work together collaboratively to align their building and departmental plans with the board's goals in those priority areas. So, and I think we've gotten off to a very good start. We're charged up, we're positive, and we're basically off to a very good start this week. We've had a couple of incidents involving busing. Those issues are being addressed, but in our school buildings themselves, it's been very, very positive. And our new director of transportation is right on top of things in terms of making sure that we have safe bus operations. So,
great. Very good. Any questions or comments on that? As Mr. Simon says, we, and I mentioned earlier, we had our board retreat and shared with us the presentation and the areas. We try to weave those into our current goals and how we can make sure that we address the things that you talked about at the opening day with the staff and collaborate on some of those items for the overall objectives. So, very good. Moving on to the regular business items, and you may notice that there are time slots on some of our stuff just to kind of keep us moving along here, and but build in some flexibility for conversation like we did discussion. So we're pretty much on schedule, which is great. So we'll go to our first item, the approval of programs for resident children with disabilities. The motion to approve that. Joanne, second. Jennifer, all those in favor? Approved. Next, we have the bus purchase reserve funding, which we talked about in our last meeting. Any questions or comments before voting on that? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve that. John, need a second. Jennifer, all those in favor? Approved. The next item is the capital reserve funding. Again, a conversation we had about putting reserves into a new fund, which the community voted on and approved at the last budget cycle, and we're now going to fund that with monies from our general fund. Any questions or comments on that? Not seeing any. Motion to approve. Joanne, second. Michelle, all those in favor? That's approved. We now have our tax tertiary reserves. Any explanation needed for that? No? Okay. If not, need a motion to approve that reserve funding. Michelle, second. John, all those in favor? That's approved. We now have a financial advisory services agreement. Just brief comment on that, Linda, just to give us a quick background.
Sure. Capital Markets Associate is our fiscal advisors, has been the last couple of years. And we went out with an RFP in 2019. This contract will bring us through 2025, at which time we'll go out again with an RFP. They assist us with our financing, our debt financing, issuing of bonds and bond anticipation notes.
Thank you.
So
So it's-
Linda, that's a long contract. It's
3 years.
Three,
It's
okay,
3
so,
years.
so we went in 19 and we did an RFP, but we're not doing another one now.
No, we're not doing another. We'll do another one at the end of this.
So really it
contract.
is 6 years between.
6 years.
Is that normal for that
Yeah.
length of time?
5 to 6 years.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions for Linda? Thank you, Linda. Need a motion to approve that? Michelle, second. Jennifer, all those in favor? That's approved. Now we have the instructional contract for Wine and School Union Free School District. That's the tuition for the Wine and School, which is a K-8 system. Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, I need a motion to approve. John, I need a second. Cheryl, all those in favor? Jen? Jennifer, you're good?
Sorry.
Okay, thanks. Just want to get a count. I'm going a little fast here, so please feel free to stop me. And the final item is the appropriation of E-rate funds. Just a quick explanation of E-rate. Linda, if you could.
Sure. E-rate funds, we receive money back on the money that, on the expenses we have for telecommunication expenses. We receive a rebate back each year, and that money can be used to purchase technology.
So I can see in the attachment, there's a significant amount for our Chromebook purchases and licenses and moving forward with those replacement cycle. Right, Peter? Is that right?
Yes.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. on
Emily,
this.
yes.
So this is a refund. Does this money go back into a specific fund for us, or where does it go?
So when the board approves this, what we'll do is appropriate this amount of money to a certain budget code, which will be used to purchase those technology items.
Oh, okay.
So the source of the funds, right, is from the
It's the
E-rate system.
E-rate and it's from the
Universal E-rate.
telecommunications.
It's on your bill, your phone bill and like that. Yeah, so if you ever look at a paper copy of your phone bill, you'll see that E-rate in there someplace hidden.
I don't know paper.
It's like, no PDF, electronic. It's in there buried someplace. And we get that money to use for technology.
Like, I don't even use paper.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
We have to have multiple sources of information.
Gotta trust and verify.
That's right. Okay. So with that, I need a motion to approve the E-rate funds appropriation. Emily, second. Cheryl, all those in favor? Approved. All right, moving on to committee reports. We'll start with our Director of HR, Marissa.
Thank you, Mr. Vito. I just want to provide a brief staffing update. Majority of our instructional positions are now filled. We currently have a reading leave of absence position for 2 years due to a teacher that's on a care family leave. So we're working to recruit for that right now. We also have a .2 art teacher at the middle school that we've been recruiting for since earlier this summer, and unfortunately we have not found a selected candidate. So we are currently working with EGTA on possibly moving forward with a 6th period assignment. And we have a part-time physical therapist position that's vacant. For teaching assistants, we have 5 full-time teaching assistants across the district and 2 part-time. We currently have an automotive mechanic vacancy And we are on the consent agenda tonight. We have 5 new bus drivers that we're very excited about. But we still have 2 more positions to fill for bus driver. We have a cook position at Columbia High School, a custodial worker at Red Mill Elementary. We have several monitor positions throughout the district and several clerical positions that still need to be filled. Our school safety supervisor posting closed earlier this week. We have 5 candidates that meet qualifications, and Mrs. Barker will be moving forward with building level interviews soon. We are going to be reconvening the Assistant Transportation Supervisor Interview Committee. We're going to be holding interviews in a few weeks. And we also extended our job search posting for the Director of Pupil Personnel Services. That is extended through September 30th to attract a larger candidate pool. And if we have a board member that might be interested in serving on that committee, that would be great.
Look at me. PBS director. I mean, I'll participate if I can get some availability on the times.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, Marissa. Once I know more, the scheduling, I'd be interested as well.
We will
Yeah,
work
Jen can be
on
first. I'll be a backup.
scheduling a definitive date, and then we can get back to everybody with the dates.
You said the posting closes the end of this month, correct?
End of September, so on September
Okay.
30th, and we're looking to hold initial interviews in October. Mr. Simons and I just haven't gotten an exact date yet, but I'll let everybody know.
All right, sure.
So what about, tell me about the HR generalist position.
So that position, we are waiting on approval from civil service, but I spoke with Mr. Simons yesterday, and we are going to move forward with posting that.
Good. One of the things that we talked about is that the challenges you have with the civil service component, and like we need to get it out there and at least start that process to support the work you're doing. And obviously with the list that you read, it's well needed, and we support the additional help for the office.
That'll go up this week.
Good.
Marissa, why do you think the art position is so hard to fill? Is it because it's 0.2?
It's a 0.2, and the position is needed in the afternoon each day. It's for release time for an art teacher in our school district. And just because of it only being the 1 class per day, what happens is we interview and we have interested candidates, but then they get hired full-time elsewhere. So we are working very closely with EGTA right now. We have an art teacher currently that's at Goff Middle School who is willing to serve in a 6-period assignment. So we're just finalizing that with EGTA, and then we can move forward with that person to cover the class.
Thank you.
And in the event that you can't, I mean, regulations have been revised and changed for substituting with non-certified staff, but at least they have the background in art, for example, that you can go for a lot longer in terms of time periods. And that regulation was extended to the end of this year. So another option that we can look at too.
Yeah.
Explore.
Is one of the grade levels larger at Goff that has that like extra, section of art, or?
It's not really an extra section of art, is we have an art teacher that has release time for their union in the contract. So
okay,
what
yeah,
we
okay.
do is similar to our department chairs, we have to provide that embedded release time. So this would
So
be
they have
covering
4
that
sections
1
instead of
class.
5. Okay, got it. All right.
But we do have an art teacher in district that is interested in
Awesome.
a 6-period.
Awesome.
That would be
So
excellent.
we're going to move forward with that.
Okay.
Is that it? Good.
That's it for me.
Okay. Moving on to Linda
None of this.
and
So we had our first social emotional learning district committee. We met on August 25th. It was a really great group. We had a nice 3-hour meeting. Not all meetings will be 3 hours, but we really wanted to have a real good discussion with it being our first our first meeting. So we were able to really talk about what is social emotional learning, what does it mean to all of us. I gave a little bit of my background and some different work that I've done, in my prior role. And then we were really able to, break into groups, and there was some really great discussions on, some of the work that is already going on in the district. I don't want anyone to think that because we are just starting in SEL committee, that there is no social emotional learning work going on in the district. It already is. And that was, evident in the discussion. And then we really started, wanting to define a vision statement for our committee, and the groups shared out. And to be honest, we probably could have gone with any one of the groups and just went with it. But, we kind of put one out there, said, let's sit on it. And at our next meeting, we'll take a vote and adopt that. And then we talked about, what are the strengths, in all of the buildings and district-wide in terms of SEL, and then what are some areas for growth for us as a district. And then at this next meeting, we're going to select 3 to 5 focus areas for the committee for the year. And then we're going to continue to move on from there. The next meeting is actually tomorrow afternoon. So if any board members would like to be on the committee, please let me know, and we would love to have you.
Great. Mr. Simons?
We had our first meeting of the Code of Conduct Committee in the summer on August 22nd. The topics of discussion included how we can reinforce expectations this year regarding our disciplinary code. We talked about some of the trends that were mentioned earlier in terms of inappropriate interactions between kids using technology. We talked about the substance abuse issues. We also talked about the impact of the pandemic on student mental health, and also the need, in addition to having consequences within the Code of Conduct, to be implementing some of our professional development regarding restorative practices, giving kids opportunities to build back trusting relationships with students, to build trusting relationships back with faculty and staff, and also to own up to their behavior, make amends, so to speak. And the committee was specifically focused on some aspects of the dress code as well. We talked about hoodies being worn during school. We came to consensus that students should not be wearing those hoodies while passing through the hallways. If one or two students happen to have a hood up in class and the student was paying attention and it wasn't disrupting the class, the teachers felt that it should be their own individual judgment as to whether or not this was becoming a distraction in the class. But as far as the hallways are concerned, we have the hoodie rule for a reason. We want to make sure that all of the kids in the school district are supposed to be in the school. We don't want someone to come in who may be not one of our students. So most of the faculty and staff can identify the kids if they don't have their hoodie on. So that's the reason for the rule. But we also talked about in the classroom, the teachers need some level of discretion and felt they could manage that issue themselves. We also, I talked about trends in suspension rates over the course of the last couple of years. I talked about some of the work that's going on by the New York State Education Department regarding the New York State Safety Task Force, which I am on as a representative of the district, looking at these kinds of issues, but also making sure that we are not overly relying on exclusionary practices of discipline. Then in addition to, for example, out-of-school suspension, in-school suspension, that we have other options such as community service, restorative practices, mediation, working with the families. And the committee agreed that for this year, basically our code of conduct will be brought forward with the board with some minor adjustments, likely next meeting, and that we would continue to have the conversation and work on a section of the code of conduct that deals with other effective practices to address appropriate behaviors in students, such as the restorative practices category. Some of the information, I think, from the SEL committee would flow into the Code of Conduct Committee for us to put into the document. Additionally, we also had a Health and Safety Committee meeting on August 25th. Those meetings are in the evening. This meeting was conducted via Zoom. We had a guest presenter that Questar had brought to the superintendent's meeting, Dr. Jacqueline Schildkraut from SUNY Oswego. Dr. Schildkraut has done a number of extensive projects in the Syracuse City School District regarding lockdown drills and has studied the impact and effectiveness of lockdown drills on students, faculty, and staff. An interesting study indicating that lockdown drills actually work, and they may initially increase student and faculty and staff anxiety. They also increase student and faculty preparedness in the data that she shared. Additionally, her work includes working with an organization called I Love You Guys, which is a program that Craig Hansen is trying to get support from the state on, that simplifies the language that we use around our emergency drills and includes posters and templates that are easily understood by kids, better understood by faculty and staff and parents. We actually have at least one school interested in piloting that if we can. It's confusing sometimes whether you're talking about a lockout or a lockdown, or you're talking about a shelter in place. This is different language, the same procedures, but different language that is more rhythmic, that has symbols associated with it, and the kids can learn it quicker. I ran it by our law enforcement representatives, and they like it and support transitioning to it, but we can't really transition to it until the state says that it's acceptable within their safety protocols. So it was a very good meeting. We also, thanks to Linda Wager, met with a representative from a program called Stop It Solutions. You may recall that Alyssa's law enables schools to permit panic buttons within the schools in the event of an emergency. We already have some panic buttons associated with our technology infrastructure in our buildings, but we're talking about not only the panic button piece, but the anonymous reporting piece. It's more of an extensive process than the tip line that we have on the website, which would enable us to immediately report incidents to the administration and directly to law enforcement in the event that it occurs during off hours. And we're working with the police department on how that might work in our district. And I think Linda has done some follow-up on that. Linda, if you want to just kind of briefly comment on the follow-up that you've done with the company and Questar.
Sure, absolutely. We have signed a zero purchase order because this is funded through a grant that Questar has received. So we are on the docket for that to receive this product. But the anonymous reporting program is really what we got the demonstration on, and it really is a pretty involved program. We can customize it for ourselves so that different incidents can be reported anonymously, and we get information on it quickly so that we can act on it.
More to come on that. That's right. Good. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Simons?
When I was reading the notes on the code of conduct, it seemed good. One thing, and I think you explained it a little bit, it was confusing about like the comment on about fashion trends and bearing down on I think it was like bare skin or showing more skin. And I just want to caution that studies do show that we overcompensate in how young females dress, and we send certain messages based on that. So I'm happy to see, what it looks like this year, but I just want to caution that that's something to keep in mind when we police young females' bodies instead of the other side of it.
We talked about that actually, about that, sometimes we make a recommendation that we should be more strict regarding the dress code, and with trends and other concerns, we have to be cautious and careful about that. Additionally, I also talked about the incident that occurred with the track and field athlete who was African-American, and the New York State Public High School Athletic Association rule that you couldn't wear beads in your hair, which was prevented a track athlete in a local district from participating in an important meet. The superintendent stood up for that, and suburban council and said we wanted that to change, and so did the commissioner of education. So we had that conversation. I think it's a balance of making sure that kids don't become a distraction in the school because of the way they dress, but also to be careful about the sensitivities around kids' esteem as it relates to what they're wearing.
And just to kind of piggyback off of that, I think there is a perception that it's very different between the Gulf Middle School and the high school, and the strictness in the middle school versus the high school. So, we need to try to have a little bit more consistency, I think, on how we go. If we're going to have one policy, it probably should be across both schools.
Yeah.
But, I also agree with Emily, we can't stifle identity or make somebody feel less worthy based on what they wear.
And it's a hard thing to enforce in terms of the sensitivities around it.
Yeah.
It's really hard nowadays to enforce the disciplinary aspects of the dress code, but we always try to treat it sensitively and do it privately when we can, so that no student is embarrassed and no student feels judged or a family feels judged.
Jeff, just on the overall code of conduct, and I think one of the things, it's something to think about, is we're always saying policy, policy, policy. Have a policy for this, have a policy for that, which I think is good. But I would like to see us take approach to how we deal with these situations within the code of conduct and discipline as guidelines. We have our policy, but then we have our guidelines. Mm-hmm. Because I still think the power of a school is in the discretion that it has to do the right thing for the individual student. A lot of times when you get into a policy, people will just reflect to the policy when the sensitivity is then lost. And I don't want to create a path for the teachers and the administrators that they don't have enough flexibility to still do a case-by-case analysis on discipline, especially in areas of discipline and things like that. But then if we shift to that kind of model, then we have to make sure we have professional development to make sure that people all understand all the things that we talked about as we move through this, that we're willing to give you the discretion to police your own buildings to the standards that is acceptable to everybody there. But with that comes a responsibility to do it correctly.
Very good. Thank you, John.
Any other comments? Very good. Thank you. Moving on to our next agenda item is table motions. We have none at this time. Old business, board members, anything we have nothing on the agenda. But, okay. So we now move to our consent agenda. The consent agenda, just so people are aware, is something that the board members look at, the different items. We read through the different areas that are listed here and make sure that we've understood them, and then there's an opportunity for questions. So at this time, is there any questions about the consent agenda and items A through G? No. Seeing none, I need a motion to approve by consent those items. Jennifer, I need a second. Michelle, all those in favor? Approved. We don't have any addendums. Board members, any new business you'd like to raise at this time? No. Okay. We have our second public forum. Anybody? No. And then board forum. I'll start on my right with Emily. Joey. Jennifer. John.
Just a couple of things. One, I'd like to thank Allison for speaking to the concerns and benefits of labor relations and setting the tone for the school year. I think it's really important. I think it's what the school district is about is a collaboration to move every problem and issue forward. Every problem we encounter during a school year does have a solution, but to get to that solution, we all have to sit down together. So I really do appreciate your commentary on that. To all the folks, we're looking forward to giving you the tools you need to be successful. Special shout out to Bill Thanks, Bill, I know dragging you out of that mountain air is a little difficult. I know I struggle with it myself.
It doesn't mean you can drag your feet out.
I understand. I saw you looking at me when Marissa was talking about the poster. I saw you.
The leaves will be turning soon, Bill. We're going to get on this for you. So again, and I really like to thank the board for their input at the retreat. I think it's really important that we have an opportunity to agree, disagree, talk about things that are important to each of us as individuals, and then come with a consensus to move the team forward. And I'm looking forward to the next one. It's very productive, and to the administration, finally, thanks for all that you do and getting these kids back to school and trying to bring our life back together with some type of semblance of normalcy.
Thank you, John.
Well said. Michelle.
Well said.
Cheryl. Good. So just to piggyback on what John said, we did talk about a retreat about others involved in the board goal process. I talked to Mark, he's gonna be involved, Mr. Simons, myself. Any other board members available?
Mike, you can put me down.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate it. Very good. Okay, so Emily, so we'll figure out some times that people are available to participate and we'll move forward. All right. That concludes our regular business. We do have need for an executive session for purposes of contractual items and personnel. And so we don't anticipate any other board business after the meeting. So with that, I wish you good night. Thank you very much for attending this evening. Great to be back in the admin center for our board meeting. Looks great. Need a motion to go into executive session? Joanne, second. Michelle, those in favor? Thanks.